Vi's always been seen as a noob champ, point and click, no skill, nothing flashy, and I used to believe that too. Back when I started playing League, I was drawn to champions with style, insane outplay potential like Lee Sin, Zed, Ezreal, the ones that made you feel like a god if you managed to pull something off. I never really did do that, but what I didn't realize at the time is that Vi kind of has that same potential too. And after years of maining her, I've discovered combos and mechanics many players don't even know exist.
I almost got away with it. I almost lived.
And once you start learning these combos, Vi is gonna feel like a completely new champion. Let's dive deep into Vi. First one up is Vi's most basic combo, and that is the Q auto E animation. Your E is an auto reset, which means you can Q auto, and that auto is gonna come a little bit faster than normal autos as well. And then your auto animation cancel with your E and you proc the W, and they do a bunch of damage. You also proc your W, which means you can have attack speed for the rest of the fight. And also your empowered basic attacks in League follow flashes. That is one of the big reasons you also want your E after your first auto attack. So that is a really basic. You need to be able to do this in your sleep. Next one up is Flash Q and Q Flash, and there's a big difference, and you need to know when to use which, because everybody should know this combo, but it's still important to realize what are the strengths and weaknesses of both combos. So one thing with the Flash Q is that it's usually a little bit easier for people to hit. It's a little bit more reliable. Not the strength, it is actually a slightly longer range than the Q Flash. If you max range and you're not sure if you're gonna hit, it's better to Flash Q, especially if you know they don't have Flash, because then you're just gonna be able to hit it. Another thing is that when you come from out of fog of vision, if you stand in a bush, for example, and you're waiting to combo them, but you need Flash to cover the extra distance, you should be using your Flash first. The reason for it is if you use your Q first, your Q is slower than Flash because Flash is instantly, right? So if you're using your Q first, they're gonna actually be able to see you and react and maybe potentially Flash or use an escape tool to get away. But if you Flash Q, you're almost gonna hit them instantly, and that is a big strength of Flash Q. So it's longer and it's a little bit quicker from out of fog of vision. The big strength of Q Flash, it feels a little bit more unpredictable. You can use it in different direction and you can use it to manipulate where you knock players. That is a huge thing. You can also use it to redirect and get around players much easier. You can Q to the side and flash around them, and it's very nice in this way. And yeah, you can, on ganks, you can kind of Q behind them if you don't need the max range and flash up, and you can get a better angle on them. And another thing is that usually more reliable to hit it too, because instead of the Flash Q, which you need to aim, if you Q Flash, all you have to do is flash on top of them and you're gonna hit it. The other one, they have a chance of dodging, but the other one, if they try to dodge, you're just gonna flash on top of them the moment it happens. You need to be able to practice this combo. It's super important and it's a staple for Vi. Next one up is the QR animation cancel. So mid Q, you can actually start channeling your ultimate and you're going to be able to cancel the animation. So it's going to go way quicker. And also a big benefit to this is that you can go through CC. So if you Q, for example, into Lux Q or Syndra Q and it's coming towards you, you can immediately R mid Q and just like QR in a fluid motion, you're going to be able to cancel your Q so you don't get pushed back. Because many times against these champions, hook champions or bindings or CC spells that comes into you, if you just Q and try to get close, they're going to stun you or bind you or CC you in some way. And then by the time you break the CC, they're already out of range from your ultimate. So that's why you can use the QR animation to cancel. It's also making it really fluent. You can QR and it's going to be really quick. You can hit somebody with the Q immediately or somebody else like mid Q, and you're going to be able to hit both at the same time immediately and do a bunch of damage. It's really nice. Next one up is really cool. It's the E Flash. So it's both a little bit flashy, but it also has a lot of use cases. I've been using this more and more lately because there's so many use cases for this. So it's one, you can use your flash to redirect your E blast damage. So the damage from your blast is going to come from where you end up. So, and you can flash mid E. So if you E flash to the side of that target, you can hit somebody on the other side. and you can redirect damage in this way. Another way to use it is if you go for kind of risky dives, you're going really deep, you can go for a Q auto E, for example, quite deep in a fight, and immediately flash during your E. Your basic attack will go off, and you're going to be able to flash out the safety if incoming damage from champions or a CC spell coming in. Or going on the tower, for example, and you can't take another tower shot, you can Q auto E flash and get out, and it's looking really cool, and it has a lot of use cases, and you need to learn this. Next one up is the QR and RQ, and you need to know when to use which. So the QR is quite nice. Sometimes you're not going to be able to use your auto attack, so maybe they're not useful in between your Q, auto E, and then ultimate. Sometimes you don't want to do this, especially if you're playing Bruiser and you just need to shut down that target and not allow him to flash, for example. So that way you're going to use your QR immediately on that target and just shut him down completely. Sometimes you don't need the extra damage, you just need to keep them CC'd so they can't flash between your Q and your R, so you just change to see them. Another one is the R into Q, and you're gonna want to use this, for example, if the enemy team has CC spells that stops you from getting in there. So if you're ganking bot lane, for example, and you're walking into the lane, and you want to get a reliable gank, and let's say they even have flash, right? Because if they have flash, you want to start off with your ultimate, because your ultimate is always going to hit, and even if they flash, you're going to follow them. So but if you start off with your Q and they flash, suddenly now we don't have the Q to follow up, and we lose a lot of damage in the Q. But if you start with your ultimate and then they flash after, you can Q after them, and you're going to be able to apply all the damage, because now you get still the both damage from the ultimate and the Q, and you're still on top of them. Another thing is that you can use the R, get past the CC, and then immediately just Q them to bind it with some other CC or damage from your team, and you're going to be able to keep them in place for longer, and that is very important to use. And now we start getting into the really nice stuff, and that is the R Flash. It's one of my favorite combos. Some call it the Everlast special. I'm not one of those people. Yes, I am. But it's really quite cool. You can do so much with it. You can redirect your Q to hit multiple players in the team fight, for example, or use it to finish off targets that have flash that you want to kill with the collide, because your ultimate will do damage to everyone it passes through, and you can flash during your ultimate to redirect it and hit other targets, and it's looking super cool. It's really slick. Enemy team won't know what hit him. It's one of my absolute favorite combos in the game. Next one is one of Vi's hardest combos to pull off, but it's really sick, and that is that you can Q a target or flash behind them, and you can actually pull them. So I call this the Pullcombo. It's really cool. So you Q one target, ult someone else immediately, like the QR combo, but then you also flash behind them, and you're gonna start pulling them towards the target you actually ulted. And it's looking real sick. You can use this, so it becomes sort of like a pull combo or an instant combo if you want. And it works really well like this. I haven't been able to pull this off in game. I almost did. I actually did it in the fountain, but then it wasn't really used. Like I did it, but it didn't have any use case in that. I just did it to practice. But it's a really cool animation, and if you do this in the game, yeah, it's gonna be sick. So this last one is quite insane, but you need to have Halo Blades to be able to do this combo. With the recent buffs to Halo Blades, they made it have even more attack speed, and that allows you to get off one more auto attack in your full combo. So your full combo is going to look like Q, auto E, and then you're going to put in an extra auto attack before your ultimate, and then auto E. Because the normal combo, you actually end up with 2 stacks on the target, right? After your auto E, after your ultimate, you just Q auto E, you do the normal combo, you ult them, and then you auto E, and then many times they're going to walk away from you after that, and you're not going to be able to hold them in place at least, and you're not going to be able to proc that last W, and your W is one of your main damage sources in the game. So you get off an extra auto attack, but you also get off an extra W, which can mean 15% to 20% max HP damage, which is absolutely insane. So you're going to do a lot of extra damage with it. It's like 20% extra damage on your combo in general, which is absolutely insane. So you have to start learning this and rewiring your muscle memory, and it's gonna do so much damage. So that is quite insane. So this one is a really cool one that I just discovered kind of randomly, and that is the Q swap combo, as I call it. So if you Q flash and there's two targets and there's a little bit space between it, if you flash in the right spot between them, you're actually just gonna fling them both, and you're gonna CC them for longer and also be able to swap their positions. So if you actually want to, there's two targets on top of each other, but the ADC is in front, you can actually flash in between them and actually swap them so that their tank, for example, gets swapped into behind them, and then your furthest target, or like your closest target, is going to be the preferred target, which is really nice, and it's really quite sick. I haven't been to use this too much, but I've used it some, and it's really quite sick. Then we have something that is not really a combo, but it's a really important outplay tool, and that is to hold your Q. You can hold your Q for so long, and players don't know this, and enemies definitely don't know this. You can use it to outplay. You can hold it, bait out spells. You can bait out parry from Fiora, for example. You can bait out CC spells. You can bait out Pantheon's E. You can also bait out flashes and dashes, so you can just walk up close, start charging your Q and holding it, and they're gonna flinch, and they're gonna do something every time, and it always works like a charm. It's super important. You're gonna have so many more successful, both ganks and fights if you start doing this. So this is super important. Make sure to get it right. Next one up is a mechanic that you also need to start using, which is the E off of minions and towers. And you can use this so much, and even AoE off of other champions to kill the champion you do want to target. And since you do so much damage with your E, and especially if you're going a full damage build, you do a lot of damage, and there's so much potential here. It can grant you a lot of extra kills and nice ganks and some cool outplays as well. Next one up is what I call the box combo, because I drew inspiration from it, from his Riven actually, and applied it to Vi. So this is where you flash away to be able to buy yourself time. If you're both one auto attack, for example, you can flash away and then Q back in, and it's very nice, and you're able to dodge spells or dodge auto attacks, and then you can come back, especially if you're waiting for your passive, or just whoever gets the first spell off wins. And sometimes you're gonna die, so you can buy off that space and then go back in, and it's working really well. It's a cool outplay that you should be using. Next one is what I call the triple E combo, and that is actually just simple that you can apply your E and it will stay charged for a long time, and you can walk around with it. And if you use it, for example, when you're going to your Krugs off of your base, you can press E a few seconds before you're actually gonna hit it, and your next E will start channeling up, because as soon as you start your E, it will start recharging, and it will go on cooldown, not when you press or like hit them with your basic attacks, but actually when you press the E. So that way you can press E before you go into the fight. You can start with one E, and you're almost gonna have two E's immediately then, so that way you get triple E combo. It's really quite nice and quite useful to just speed up your clear, or to get an extra E in those attacks. It's especially nice if you're playing Sun Sky and Trinity Force, and you're able to use the Spell Blade and the crit on the E, which is quite nice. Many times you do want to use just a Q auto E. I don't use this combo a lot, but it's nice knowing about. If you want to learn these combos really quickly, you should be using Practice Tool, and also have a mentality of just like, it's okay to make mistakes. Like when I started out playing League, you didn't have this Practice Tool. Like at the start of the game, I would just flash over a wall to practice flashing over walls, which is kind of insane, but it's still the only way to do it, to get any sort of repetitions in. Now we can go into Practice Tool, set it on 0 cooldowns, and just like blast out repetitions, and you're gonna be able to learn these combos so fast. Like just Q flash around, set up some target dummies, R flash, E flash, do all that, and just like practice it a lot. And when you get in game, just mess around and have fun and enjoy the game, and be allowed to make mistakes. If play some Brawl or Arena or ARAM, and just like at least practice there, right? Or normal games, and just try, because it's the only way to learn. And even if you do make some mistakes, so what? I made plenty, so don't worry about them. If you want to know what not to do with your Qs instead of here, like outplays, I made a video about like common YQ mistakes, so check that out. It's quite nice.